Welcome to Black Women, Engineered Motion. Join us on this three-part series. This is a space where we celebrate the stories of Black women who have not only broken barriers, but have also redefined what it means to move through the world with purpose, power, and passion. Today, we're embarking on a journey that soars above the clouds and dives deep into the heart of heritage, ambition, and the relentless pursuit of dreams. Here, every story is a flight plan, charting a course through history, adversity, and triumph. I'm Zine, and today we're lifting off with a story that's full of heart, heritage, and high altitudes. As we look out over the vast Nigerian landscape, dotted with villages and bustling cities, we're reminded that every journey begins with a single step, or, in this case, a single dream. The sky has always been a symbol of limitless possibility, but for many, especially Black women, the path to the cockpit has been anything but clear. It's taken courage, resilience, and a vision that refuses to be grounded by expectation or tradition. My guest is someone whose name already carries gravity, but it's her journey that gives it wings. She's a woman who has faced turbulence and headwinds, yet has always found a way to climb higher. Her story is not just about flying planes, it's about engineering her own motion, designing her own destiny, and inspiring others to do the same. She stands as a beacon for young girls everywhere who dare to look up and imagine themselves in the captain's seat. Captain Amina, yes, an airline captain, a woman, Black, Nigerian, fearless, in a world where the cockpit has long been dominated by men, and where Black women are still a rare sight at the controls. Captain Amina's presence is both revolutionary and necessary. She's not just flying planes, she's shattering ceilings, rewriting narratives, and proving that excellence knows no gender, no color, no boundary. Her uniform is more than fabric. It's a symbol of possibility, stitched together by years of hard work, sacrifice, and unyielding belief. You're about to hear the story of how a little girl in a quiet Nigerian village became the commander of one of the most powerful aircraft in the sky. Picture her, wide-eyed, standing barefoot in the red earth, gazing up as a silver plane cuts across the blue. For many, that moment would be fleeting, a passing curiosity. But for Amina, it was the spark that ignited a lifelong passion. Despite the challenges of growing up in a place where resources were scarce, and role models in aviation were even scarcer, she held on to her dream with both hands. Her family, though unfamiliar with the world of flight, nurtured her curiosity and encouraged her to reach for heights they themselves had never imagined. So sit back, take a deep breath, and prepare for takeoff. As we journey through Captain Amina's story, you'll discover the power of perseverance, the importance of representation, and the beauty of dreams that refuse to be grounded. This is more than a story about aviation. It's about the engineered motion of a life propelled by hope, courage, and the unwavering belief that the sky is not the limit, but just the beginning. Let's get ready to soar together. Captain Amina, welcome. It's truly an honor to have you here with us today. Your story has inspired so many, and I know our viewers are eager to hear about the journey that brought you to the skies. Let's start at the very beginning, before the uniform, before the cockpit, before the world knew your name.
Thank you, Zine. It's so good to be here. I'm smiling already. Every time I get to talk about my journey, it brings back so many memories. Some challenging, some joyful, but all of them important. I hope that by sharing my story, I can encourage others to dream big, no matter where they start.
So let's go right to the very beginning. Where were you, and how old were you when you first looked up at the sky and thought, I want to be up there? Take us back to that moment, to the sights, the sounds, the feelings that first sparked your dream.
I was about 9. I remember it so clearly, as if it happened just yesterday. I was a little girl, full of energy and curiosity, running around with my friends in our small village in Nigeria. The air was warm, the sun was shining, and the world felt so big and full of possibilities, even though I didn't know what those possibilities were yet. We were playing near the old water tank in my village, and I heard this loud hum above me. It was a sound that didn't belong to the earth. something that made us all stop in our tracks. The water tank was a gathering place for us kids, a place where we invented games and shared stories. But that day, something extraordinary happened. Suddenly, the familiar sounds of laughter and chatter faded away as that hum grew louder. I remember the way the sunlight danced on our faces as we all looked up, searching for the source of the noise. There was a sense of wonder in the air, a feeling that something magical was about to happen. It was a plane. I stopped, just froze and looked up. My heart was pounding in my chest, and for a moment it felt like time itself had stopped. I had never seen anything like it before. A machine, soaring high above the earth, defying gravity, gliding effortlessly through the sky. It was silver, gliding, almost like magic. The way it moved, so smooth and graceful, made it seem like it belonged to another world. I remember thinking how is that possible? Who gets to be up there looking down at all of us? It was as if the plane was calling out to me, inviting me to dream beyond the boundaries of my village. In that moment, something shifted inside me. I felt a longing, a deep desire to know what it would feel like to fly, to see the world from above, to be free from the limitations of the ground. I didn't have the words for it then, but I knew I wanted to be part of that world, the world of the sky. And I remember asking my father, "Who's flying that?" I was so curious, so full of questions. My father was a gentle man, always patient with my endless curiosity. He looked at me, smiled, and answered in a way that seemed so simple at the time, but would come to mean so much more to me as I grew older. And he said, "Probably a man." He said it casually, but it stuck with me. It planted something. I remember feeling a mix of emotions, confusion, disappointment, but also determination. Why did it have to be a man? Why couldn't it be someone like me, a girl from a small village with big dreams? That moment became a turning point in my life. I started to see the world differently. I began to question the things I had always accepted, to wonder about the possibilities that lay beyond what I could see. I would spend hours lying on my back, watching the clouds drift by, imagining myself soaring among them, feeling the wind in my hair and the sun on my face. I became obsessed with the idea of flight. I started reading everything I could find about airplanes and pilots, even though resources were scarce in my village. I would draw pictures of planes in my school notebooks, and whenever I heard that familiar hum in the sky, I would run outside, hoping to catch a glimpse of another silver bird passing overhead. My mother noticed my fascination and encouraged me to keep dreaming, even when others said it was impossible. She would tell me stories of strong women who had achieved great things, reminding me that I could be anything I wanted if I worked hard and believed in myself. Of course, not everyone believed in my dream. Some people in the village would laugh or shake their heads, saying, "Girls don't fly planes." But their doubts only made me more determined. I wanted to prove to myself and to everyone else that I could do it, that I could break the mold and reach for the sky. Looking back now, I realize that my first dream of flight was about so much more than just airplanes. It was about freedom, about possibility, about daring to imagine a life beyond the limits set by others. That dream became the foundation for everything I would achieve later in life. And now, every time I step into the cockpit, I carry that little girl with me, the one who looked up at the sky and dared to dream. I hope my story reminds others that no dream is too big, and that sometimes the most powerful journeys begin with a single moment of wonder.
What was village life like? It's a question that brings back a flood of memories, each one painted in the colors of the earth, the sky, and the laughter of my people. To understand village life in Nigeria, you have to slow down, breathe in the scent of wood smoke and mango blossoms, and listen to the gentle rhythm of days that seem to stretch on forever.
Simple. That's the word that comes to mind first. Life moved at its own pace, unhurried and honest. The roads were dusty, winding through the village like old stories passed down from one generation to the next. Mango trees lined the paths, their branches heavy with fruit in the right season. offering shade and sweet relief from the afternoon sun. We walked everywhere, sometimes barefoot, sometimes in worn sandals, greeting neighbors as we passed, always with a smile or a wave. The loudest sound, most days, was a goat bleating or someone cooking with too much pepper. The village was alive with small noises, children's laughter, the clatter of pots, the distant call of a hawker selling roasted corn. Sometimes the air would be thick with the smell of wood smoke and pepper, making your eyes water and your stomach rumble. Evenings were filled with the crackle of fires and the soft hum of conversation as families gathered to share stories and meals. We didn't have an airport nearby, but we had sky. Endless sky. It stretched above us, impossibly wide and blue during the day, turning gold and purple as the sun set. At night, the stars came out in their thousands, unspoiled by city lights. We would lie on our backs in the grass, pointing out constellations and making wishes. The sky was our playground, our map, our reminder that the world was vast and full of possibility. My mum was a seamstress, always stitching, humming to herself. Her hands moved quickly, turning plain cloth into beautiful dresses and shirts. She taught me that every stitch mattered, that patience and care could turn something simple into something special. The sound of her sewing machine was a constant in our home, a steady rhythm that meant everything was as it should be. She made clothes for the whole village, and sometimes for people from neighboring towns who had heard of her skill. My dad was a mechanic. He could fix anything with wire and belief. If something broke, a radio, a bicycle, a generator, he would find a way to make it work again. He taught me that problems were just puzzles, waiting to be solved, and that a little ingenuity could go a long way. People came from all over to ask for his help, and he never turned anyone away. His workshop was a place of magic, where broken things found new life. We didn't have much, but we had each other. Family meant everything. We shared what we had, celebrated together, and faced hard times side by side. The bonds we built in that village were stronger than anything money could buy. Looking back, I realized that the simple joys, fresh mangoes, starry nights, the warmth of family, were the things that made life truly rich.
Did they understand your dream?
Not at first. They thought I meant I wanted to serve food on a plane, which was already too ambitious in their eyes. But I told them, no, I want to fly it. That confused them. A girl, a black girl, from here. But slowly, my mom started to pray for me. That was her way of saying, okay, we'll try.
And what about school? How did you make it out?
Scholarships, long nights. I used to stay back after school just to read old science books. I would draw little planes in the margins of my notebooks. Eventually, I got a scholarship to study engineering, and that led me to airport ground crew work, cleaning, loading, watching pilots, and I kept saving.
That's such a climb already.
It was. When I got the acceptance letter from flight school abroad, I didn't shout or scream. I just lay down on the floor, face down, crying, because I knew this was going to change everything.
And once you got there, what was flight school like?
Terrifying. Everything was fast. Everyone sounded confident. I was the only black woman in the class, the only African. And for weeks, I thought I'd made a mistake. But I remembered where I came from and how many people were watching me from back home. And I said, Amina, you are already in the air. Don't look down now.
Did you ever come close to giving up?
Oh yes, during my instrument training, I failed a check ride. That crushed me. I felt like I'd wasted everything. The prayers, the money, the belief. But then I heard this quote, even eagles crash, but they still fly. That became my reminder. I studied harder, I passed, and I never failed another check again.
That is goosebump stuff. You said the prayers, the money, the belief. Do you still carry all of that with you when you fly?
Every single flight. Before I touch the controls, I whisper, "Thank you, let's go." It's my little ritual, not just for safety, for gratitude.
So, when you step into a cockpit now, after everything, what do you feel?
Peace. Oddly enough, peace. Because up there, in that space, it's not about who you are. It's about what you've prepared for. And I've prepared my whole life to sit in that seat.
So, Captain Amina, let's pick up from that moment. You've passed flight school, you've earned your wings. What came next?
Reality. Because the dream was lovely, but now I needed a job. I was back in Nigeria, sending out applications, and after months of silence, Arik Air called.
That was your first commercial airline, right?
Yes, my first time sitting in the right seat of a cockpit. As first officer, regional flights, Lagos to Abuja, sometimes to Accra. I still remember my first takeoff. I kept thinking, please Amina, do not embarrass your ancestors. Laughs. But it was good, hard, fast-paced, but good.
What was the learning curve like? For many, the journey to becoming a pilot is filled with challenges, but for some, the path is even steeper. The learning curve isn't just about mastering the technical skills, it's about adapting to a world that constantly tests your resilience, your adaptability, and your ability to lead under pressure.
Oh, massive. When I first started, I thought the hardest part would be learning to fly the plane itself. And don't get me wrong, that was tough. There's so much to memorize, from checklists to emergency procedures, and every flight is a test of your focus and skill. But what I didn't expect was how much more there was to it. Flying the plane is one thing. You spend hours in simulators, practicing takeoffs, landings, and every possible scenario you can imagine. But the real challenge comes when you're in the air, responsible for not just the aircraft, but for everyone on board. Suddenly, it's not just about the controls. It's about making decisions quickly, communicating clearly, and staying composed no matter what happens. But managing people, schedules, weather, maintenance delays, that's a whole different skill set. You have to coordinate with your crew, make sure everyone's on the same page, and adapt when things don't go as planned. Sometimes you're juggling last-minute changes, dealing with unexpected technical issues, or working with ground staff to solve problems before they become emergencies. There were days where we were rerouted mid-air or landed with a storm chasing us. I remember one flight in particular, lightning flashing outside, turbulence shaking the cabin, and passengers gripping their seats. In those moments, you have to rely on your training, trust your instincts, and keep a clear head. The weather doesn't care how prepared you are, it tests you every single time. You have to stay calm when everyone else is looking at you. The crew and passengers take their cues from you. If you panic, they panic. So, you learn to project confidence, even when you're making tough calls. Sometimes, it's about reassuring a nervous passenger or guiding your team through a stressful situation. That's when you realize that leadership in the cockpit is as much about empathy as it is about expertise. That's what I learned fast. Flying is technical, but commanding trust is emotional. The learning curve never really ends. Every flight, every challenge, every unexpected moment teaches you something new. It's about growing, adapting, and becoming the kind of leader people can rely on, no matter what the skies bring.
That's beautifully said. Did you ever feel like people underestimated you?
Often, some passengers would glance into the cockpit and blink, like they weren't expecting me. I once had a male co-pilot who joked, "Don't crash or they'll blame me for letting you fly." He laughed. I didn't.
How did you handle things like that?
With grace and clarity. I didn't let it rattle me, but I also didn't laugh it off. I'd say, this seat isn't about who lets who fly. It's about who's ready to. And after a few flights, most people figured out, I didn't just belong here. I owned my space.
Powerful. Let's fast forward a little. How did Emirates enter the picture?
It started with a whisper. Someone told me they were recruiting. I applied thinking I had no chance. But a few weeks later, I was flying to Dubai for assessments.
What was that process like?
Intense. Simulator tests, technical interviews, group exercises. They test how you think, how you speak under pressure, how you collaborate. At one point, I was the only woman in the room. Again, but I've learned being the only doesn't mean you don't belong. It just means you're the first.
When did you find out you got the job?
About a month later, I opened the letter, read the word congratulations, and I burst into tears. Real, deep, body-shaking tears. Because this wasn't just about a job. It was about proving to every girl watching that this was possible.
What was it like stepping into Dubai for the first time? Imagine arriving in a city that feels like it was built for dreams, where the air is thick with possibility and every corner glimmers with something new. For many, Dubai is a place you see in movies or on postcards. But for Amina, it was about to become home. The anticipation, the nerves, the excitement, all of it swirled together as she took her first steps into this world of glass, gold, and endless sky.
Beautiful. Dazzling. The city was alive in a way I'd never experienced before. The lights seemed to dance just for me, and the skyline stretched out like a promise. I remember the first time I saw the Burj Khalifa, how it pierced the sky, surrounded by a sea of shimmering towers. It was overwhelming, but in the best way. Every sound, every sight, every scent was new. The air was warm, tinged with the scent of spices and the sea. I felt like I was walking through a dream, one that was both exhilarating and a little bit intimidating. Fast, but lonely at first. Everything moved at a pace I wasn't used to. People rushed by, speaking languages I barely understood, and I felt like a small part of a much bigger story. There were moments when I missed home so much it hurt. Missed the laughter of my family, the comfort of familiar faces. I was surrounded by people, yet I felt invisible, like a shadow passing through the city's bright lights. But I also knew that this was a chance to grow, to find out who I could be when I was truly on my own. You go from being surrounded by family to a world of glass towers and perfect timing. Everything here is about precision. Flights that leave on the dot, meetings that start exactly when they're supposed to. My apartment was high above the city, with windows that looked out over a skyline that never seemed to sleep. It was beautiful, but it was also a reminder of how far I'd come and how far I still had to go. I had to learn to navigate not just the city, but a new way of living, where every day brought a new challenge and a new opportunity. I remember my first night there. The city was quiet in its own way, the hum of traffic below mixing with the distant call to prayer. I sat in the back of a taxi, watching the lights blur past, feeling both lost and found at the same time. When I finally reached my apartment, I stood on the balcony, letting the warm breeze wash over me. It was a moment of stillness in a city that never stops moving. I sat on the balcony of my apartment, looking out at the skyline, and I whispered, "Amina, you're here. Now, rise to it." That night, I promised myself I would embrace every challenge, every joy, every moment of loneliness and wonder. Dubai was no longer just a place on a map. It was my new beginning, and I was ready to make it my own.
And then came the A380.
Laughs warmly. Yes, the Cathedral of the Skies. 4 engines, double deck. She's a queen. Flying the A380 is like driving a ship through clouds. It's elegant and massive at the same time.
Do you remember your first time flying it?
Oh, vividly. The weight, the responsibility, the exhilaration. I think I gripped the yoke too tightly at first. But once we were airborne, it felt like the aircraft said, "Relax, I've got you." And I smiled the entire flight.
That sounds like magic.
It is. Every time. There's this one moment when you break through thick clouds and suddenly hit that clear blue sky. That's when I always pause, because it feels like life. Storms below, peace above, you just have to climb through.
That's so visual. The image of a pilot in uniform, especially a black woman, stands out in a world where tradition and expectation often paint a different picture. There's something powerful about the way a uniform transforms, not just how others see you, but how you see yourself. It's more than fabric and stripes. It's a symbol of achievement, of breaking barriers, of carrying a legacy forward with every step. How does it feel when you walk through the airport in uniform? It's a question that seems simple, but the answer is layered with emotion, history, and hope. Every time you step into that terminal, you're not just another traveler. You're a symbol, sometimes of progress, sometimes of challenge, always of possibility. The eyes that follow you aren't just curious, they're searching for meaning, for inspiration, for a story that's different from the one they're used to seeing.
Some days, powerful. Other days, invisible. There are mornings when I walk through those sliding doors and feel the weight of every dream I've ever had resting on my shoulders, and I stand a little taller. I see the glances, the double takes, the quiet nods of respect or surprise. On those days, I feel like I'm walking in the footsteps of those who came before me and paving the way for those who will come after. But there are also days when I blend into the background, when the uniform feels like a barrier against indifference. I wonder if anyone really sees me at all, but I always walk with pride. No matter the day, no matter the looks or the silence, I know what it took to get here. Every exam, every late night, every moment of doubt, and every surge of determination. It's all stitched into this uniform. I carry my story with me, and I walk with the knowledge that I belong here, even if the world is still catching up to that truth. Because I know someone's watching. Sometimes it's a fellow traveler. Sometimes it's a colleague. Sometimes it's a stranger who's never seen a pilot who looks like me. Their eyes linger, and in that moment, I realize I'm not just representing myself. I'm representing possibility. I'm showing what's possible when you refuse to let barriers define you. A little girl holding her mom's hand might glance at me and think, maybe that can be me. I see the spark in her eyes, the way she tugs at her mother's sleeve, the questions she's too shy to ask. In that instant, I remember what it felt like to be her, to wonder if the sky was really open to someone like me. And I hope that with every step I take, that I'm making her world a little bigger, her dreams a little bolder. And if I can plant that idea in even one person's mind, if I can be the reason someone believes they can reach higher, try harder, or simply imagine themselves in a place they never thought possible, then I know I'm doing more than just my job. I'm opening doors, I'm changing narratives, I'm making space for new stories to be written. Then every flight is worth it. Every early morning, every long layover, every challenge, and every triumph, it all matters. Because with every journey, I'm not just flying planes. I'm helping others see that the sky is not the limit. It's just the beginning.
And that brings us to the end of part 1 of our conversation with Captain Amina. From childhood dreams to the first time she stepped into a cockpit, it's clear that every moment has shaped the incredible pilot she is today. And we're just getting started. In part 2, we'll talk about the real challenges, the training that tested her, the moments of doubt, and the breakthroughs that kept her going. So if you're enjoying the ride so far, stay with us. Subscribe, follow, and join us for the next leg of the journey. I'm Zine, and you've been listening to Captain Amina, from Kano to the clouds. See you in part 2.